What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock, what you should be looking after for the future of this company. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow. I'm also going to talk about the producer price index and how this may affect NIO and the markets going forward, what emotions are essentially driving the market right now, what margin calls are and how they affect NIO, and also what NIO put on their Twitter page that makes me very bullish for the future of this company. Now, before I talk about any of this, before I give you guys my price prediction for NIO, I do have to mention a couple of things real quick. The first thing is I'm not a financial planner, so please don't take this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. And not only benefits me, benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. The last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull with the link down below and deposit any amount of money, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000, and you could always sell those 5 free stocks for cash and buy some NIO shares with that money. Now, this is a limited time offer that ends in just 2 weeks. Please check it out to get your free NIO shares. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So, looking at NIO, currently, this thing is up over 3.07% for the day. However, I do want to talk about what I think is going to end up playing out based off what we're seeing. So I'm insanely bullish for NIO for the next upcoming weeks. I do think NIO is going to be involved in a squeeze like movement. I also believe that we're going to see a lot of changes in the markets in the next few weeks. But for NIO, for tomorrow, I do think this thing needs to consolidate just a little bit. So we could see a slight pullback before this thing gets ready to run. So NIO is at a point where it's essentially recharging its boosters, it's refueling before this thing gets ready to run. So just get ready for that. But right now, I want to talk about what's happening in the market too, because right now the lockdowns in China are still going on. I do think they're going to slow down a little bit in the next few weeks. But also, one of the things we're noticing is the fact that we had the producer price index coming out too. So inflation rose 11% in April for the producer prices, is what it's saying. And you can see in this report, before, for the month of March, it was reported at 11.5% for March, and now it's at 11% for April. So a 0.5% decline, which is kind of good, but at the same time, it's not necessarily good because it's still at 11%. Now, we're seeing lots of articles talking about the fact that, oh, the SPY is crashing, the market's about to crash, it's the end of the world. The fear and greed index is now at level 6. The lower it is, the worse this number is. Right? And the higher it is, the more greedy the market is. Right now, we're driven by extreme fear. And I believe you have to be greedy when those are fearful. So when it comes to the crash, I mentioned this in previous videos, I don't think the market's going to crash in a straight line. I think they're going to be maybe months where it drops, then a month or so or a few weeks where it rallies. Then it's going to just go back and forth between these phases for, I would say, perhaps the rest of the year. But as we approach later times, it's definitely going to improve. But until then, as everyone is so fearful, this is where I'm greedy, and this is where I see a lot of stocks starting to move to the upside, including NIO. Why do I say that? Well, when you look at a lot of these small to mid caps, we saw a big drop today, followed by a massive, I would say like a bit of a rally. And that's because I think a lot of these shorts, a lot of these people who were shorting this company, one of them, they got margin called, right? And it wasn't a massive position for every single company out there, but for a lot of these small caps, margin calls came. If you don't know what a margin call is, just imagine this. For a lot of people that are trading on margin, they're essentially borrowing money. A lot of the times they don't even own that money, and there's a lot more risk involved in doing that. For people who are shorting, in order to maintain a short position for a long time, you have to meet margin requirements. It's going to be trickier and more expensive to maintain these requirements as time goes on. It's kind of like taking a loan. And the thing about this is when you're paying interest on these loans, eventually things are going to get tougher the longer you hold these margin or these short positions. So what's happening is when margin calls come, they're forced to either liquidate other assets or start to cover these positions. This could just be for a tiny position. It could be for a massive position. And I think that is what happened in this case. We saw NIO drop up here, and then it went from $11 all the way up to almost $14 in just a short period of time. We saw a lot of stocks do the exact same thing, whether it's Tesla, GME. So that could be a big company, a big short that ended up kind of covering a part of their positions. And they're doing this because of the fact that there's a lack of liquidity. Things are becoming tougher for them. And also, they're doing this by essentially selling a part of their Bitcoin position. So if you look at Bitcoin, look at the way this thing has been moving. This thing just got hammered recently. Yesterday, it hit, I think earlier today, actually, it hit 25,000, dropped pretty darn hard. One of the main reasons is because of the lack of liquidity in the markets. A lot of these shorts are trying to raise that money so they can start covering some of their positions. So what I see for NIO, and I mentioned this in previous videos, excuse me, I mentioned this in previous videos. NIO, in my opinion, has squeeze potential. Okay, not just gamma squeeze. I'm talking about short squeeze potential, maybe some short squeeze potential. You could also gamma squeeze. But what I see happening for the time being is this thing did push up from its very low levels. At least it got somewhat of a push. And I do think it needs to cool down just a little bit because look at the way the chart looks right now. You could kind of see what I'm talking about. Kind of oversold, but I think it's going to need to just cool down a little bit for tomorrow. Typically, Fridays are red days for NIO and a lot of other small caps. But then I do think for either next week or the week after, the market is going to rally. And I do think NIO is going to be a part of that rally. I do think the time is almost here based off many technical indicators. And I do think that NIO is close to finding its bottoms. Okay, we're very close to the bottom. We're about to see a very, very bullish move, or maybe a very explosive move in the next upcoming weeks. But before we get there, we have to consolidate just a little bit. So this is my prediction when it comes to the way this thing is going to move. The first thing I want you to remember is if this thing drops, remember the support and resistance levels. Before I tell you support and resistance levels, then I give you guys my price prediction. Look at this. Just look at this carefully. This thing did drop below my key support, right? It got pushed down to 1167. It pushed up. It got rejected off the resistance at 1375 exactly. Then it got rejected. It didn't hold at 1350. It dropped and dropped and dropped. And where did it end up holding up? I drew out this line right here. Do you guys see this nice blue line? I drew out, what is that, 12.86, I think? $12.86 as a key support level. What happened is NIO kind of fluctuated or hovered above this, pushed up, and you could see like it pushes above one of these lines I draw as support, and you could see how it tries to hold above that. These are the support levels. Then it dropped down again. It almost bounced off 1286 again, tried to hold it, and for a lot of the day, it just held this level. It did drop a little bit below it temporarily before continuing on the upside. And it just goes to show these support and resistance levels can give you a good idea of how these stocks will end up moving. Once again, rejected off 1375, trying to hold 1286 for the majority of the day. Just goes to show how useful these could be. So, anyways, where on earth do I see this thing going? First off, let's talk about support levels. If NIO drops, we have support. I think 13 could be a psychological level, but look out for that $12.86 range. Then, if that doesn't hold us, we have $12.49, $12.50. If that doesn't hold us, we have about $12, and then we have $11.67 to be looking out for. If we start pushing up, right, if we start rallying to the upside, we have resistance at $13.50, $13.75, and then $14. And then $14.16. So be on the lookout for these levels. What do I predict is going to happen? Well, considering the fact that NIO is green today, just as I had predicted, I predicted we'd be a little bit green and closing around $13. We ended up closing at $13.10. But what I think is going to happen is generally when we have these days, we're typically red on on Fridays. So I think we're going to just cool off a little bit. That's what I think is going to happen. I expect a nice push tomorrow in the morning. We're probably going to get rejected off either 1375 or $14. Then slowly we might get a slight sell off throughout the day, and we might end up pushing and closing, I would say, excuse me, we'd end up maybe getting a drop to about 13 flat or maybe the high 12s, and I would expect us to close around there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we push up in the opening like 30 minutes of the market open. We end up dropping, trading sideways, and slowly just dropping and dropping and dropping, maybe getting a bounce off 1250, something like that, and then closing at like 12.8, 13 flat. I see a slight red day for tomorrow. Why? Because I think NIO, like I said, it's getting ready to really, really pump up. We need some consolidation first. once we get used to these levels, I do see this thing rallying back to the $20 range very, very soon. It may take a couple of weeks, but I definitely see that. I do see NIO as a squeeze potential play. And I am still incredibly bullish for what on earth is going to come. For the short term, yeah, it's going to be dictated by these margin calls, by the market, other things like that. On the long term, it's not just the market, but fundamentals that are really going to come out. And if you look at their Twitter page, this is another reason as to why I'm very bullish and why fundamentals are incredible for NIO. Look at this right here. NIO tweeted, without more prevalent EV charging infrastructure in place, the greater adoption of electric vehicles can be stalled. NIO's Ganesh V. Iyer explains it. So he's the CIO. He mentioned the fact that, look, there are lots of great companies out there. They charge their cars, which, yeah, you could do that with a NIO, you could do that with a Tesla. That's awesome. But if we are solely depending, excuse me, on charging, is that really going to speed up EV development, or is it going to slow us down? Think about that. And the thing about NIO is they have the battery swap stations. That's a brilliant idea for China, as the majority of people live in apartments, right? Almost the entire population, like 90% or so of it, lives in apartments. This is a very good opportunity because NIO is allowing you to just get in, get out of the station in just like 5 minutes, just like filling your gas. It's very, very brilliant. This could be huge if they expand like this across the world. And if you have a house and you don't want to, you know, swap your batteries, you could always charge it. You could always plug it in at different charging stations. It's incredible, incredible. So I want to put it out there that this is a very, very good development in EV technology. And I do think that they're one of those unique companies out there that's a really, really good player in the game. And I believe the EV sector, including NIO, is going to expand immensely in the upcoming years. So I'm still very bullish for the long term. For the short term, I see a red day possibly tomorrow, which is Friday, followed by a lot of green in the upcoming weeks, because I think we're almost there. I think we already found our bottom. If not, we're very close to it. And I do see some very good moves to come in the upcoming weeks. With that out of the way, thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the day. NIO to the moon, and peace out.